Back with another bike review. Today we got the wonderful Trek Top Fuel 9.9 with AXS build out. Pretty fun bike to receive as a review, and I've really been enjoying the time on this bike. This thing is kind of sounds like redesigned to shift categories a little bit, which works out very well for somebody like me. Not going to be racing cross country anytime soon, but I definitely can enjoy myself on a small, poppy, little capable bike that's a little bit more raked out than a cross country bike would be, but also has just that 120 millimeter bike zippiness to it, which is just so fun. One of those bikes that you just get on it and there's just immediately like that fast rolling sensation. Even today when the ground is cold and wet, it's just like so liberating to have your bike kind of like actively speeding things up for you and doing some favors on the climb. This Top Fuel, I don't know if it's because of its small amount of travel or perhaps the linkage. It's kind of hard to tell in these smaller bikes. Has a good amount of pedal support in or out of the saddle. You really don't have to worry about it bobbing around. But at the same time, what this bike does very well is just really soak stuff up, despite the fact that you're dealing with a little bit less travel. And that's coming from a guy who I've ridden a lot of big bikes lately. There's a lot of fun spec on this bike, but one thing I've appreciated, like I always do, is the Bontrager tires, which these particular tires kind of keep things rolling nicely. Lowered rolling resistance, but yet have surprising grip when things get weird. And it's been impressive. This bike also comes with a pretty crazy combination bar stem, which I don't know, I always get a little nervous when I see those because that eliminates your chances of changing the angles. But thankfully this one has just felt amazing, and it's actually incredibly wide. Feels like it's probably 800 millimeter or more, which has been kind of fun on this little bike because it kind of gives you a sense of stability despite having a little bike that can kind of get over its head in the Northwest. The RockShox Sid and Deluxe rear shocks are just amazing suspension. The Sid is just so buttery and free-flowing, and I've done my best to kind of just beat it up, land deep off stuff, and it just doesn't spook me, even as a 200+ pound rider. Like, the Sid is just not a reason for concern, which is pretty cool considering it's the lightest fork they make. All right, time for some downhill fun. It's pretty interesting how stable this bike is, despite, you know, being like a 120 bike, and it's just like strangely capable, even like considering straight line chunk and high speeds and relatively steep trails. I love how kind of connected you can feel to your tires with like a smaller bike like this. Ooh. Very soggy cedar. Ooh. Kind of just can take stuff deep, and that little Sid takes it. That little rear end takes it. I tell you what, this is a chilly day. And like, well, being stable, as I've said, it's got that very like scalpel like precision feel. So you just feel like you can kind of put the bike more where you want it. That with like a big sloppier bike, and woo, so easy to pop this thing. It's just a riot. Just funny how you adjust to that, and after like not that long, you just know, oh, I've got that gap. Yeah, this Sid and this Deluxe shock just really recover from hits rapidly, which can be super fun just because you can really batter that 120 mils of travel and yet get a lot of energy return out of it. And it's kind of like ready for the next hit. Woo! Yeah, it's not like as scary as you would think getting this little bike up to speed. You don't have to hold back as much. Just very capable for being, you know, in that smaller category. Woo! These G2 Ultimate brakes are really good. Have actually some of the better lever feel. I really like them, but they will be, you know, with that 180 rotor up front and 160 in the rear, they are definitely like the crux of this bike when it comes to getting super gnarly. So if you're like me and you're over 200 pounds, you might want to update to a little bit bigger brakes, or maybe even some codes or something else. Oh, let's get that zippiness and just like that energy return out of pumping this bike is just so fun. It's kind of crazy like how much faster these little bikes can feel on certain like blue or pumpier trails, just to get all that energy back. It's also really interesting to me like how well this Sid fork holds up to like pretty extreme abuse, like big deep impacts and whatever. It just takes it in stride. Woo! I have not been able to get that gap on any bike yet. Little bikes for the win. Another big one here. Woo! Just feel a little bit more alive on this thing. I get the feeling that it must be the kind of the reach and the chainstay that adds so much stability to this little bike, and it does kind of make sense when you think of it. Like, pretty similar to the other Trek bikes that I've tested, regardless of having quite a bit less travel, but just that big, longer chassis helps so much. This thing is just so zippy. Overshooting the landings for sure. Cheech and Chong's, sponsored by the local Trek store in town. How fitting. Woo! I love just leaning this bike over in a crazy way. Woo! Yeah, as far as that like rear suspension, rear suspension, it does just kind of like dive into the travel so nicely. And then there's a great ramp up, but I really like how it just swallows stuff in such a kind of unique way that I feel that Trek kind of suspension design, I don't know, their bikes just really seem to have that nice quality where it really just dives into the first part of the travel, and it's a nice feeling. I like it. I just feel a little bit more alive riding this little bike. A little bit more in tune with what's going on the trail underneath you. You can't just, in some ways you can't just like send it and pray for the best. You got to be a little bit more precise. I will say on these like tight corners, this bike has a little bit more of like a big bike quality with the wheelbase. Like a 435, you know, it's a little bit longer. Oh, big puddle. Oh God. Try to save the camera, but that little steeper head angle does help. So stable in a straight line though. So who is this new Top Fuel for? I think it's for riders that are so wet. Riders that are looking to spend long days in the saddle, that need that kind of smaller bike that's gonna give them that like just way more efficiency. And then also I think just really talented riders looking for like a super zesty poppy bike that they can just kind of have their way with. Just be a little bit more frisky out on the trail. As they're so much fun, these little bikes. Every time I get on one, I just have a ball. If you enjoyed the review, consider subscribing to the YouTube channel. And for the full write-up, head on over to freehubmag.com.